This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
The opening half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. And a terrific service department that backs it up every step of the way, whether it's quick lane inspections, routine, difficult, they handle it all. At Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. We welcome in the great man himself, and that is Dick Jerardi. My good friend, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Steve. I'm heading to Sunbury Motors right now. I'm on my way.
No surprise whatsoever by this veteran campaigner. All right, so.
A great ad for no doubt a great spot, and I'll be by shortly. So just get the cars ready.
Yeah, all set. They're rolling them out as we speak. So, Dick, 16 are left, and there are a lot of big names left. You and I both know Cinderellas fun, but only has a shelf life. Okay. Yeah. The Big Ten is in an interesting spot. They get 4 in, but they've got 3 playing ones in the Sweet 16. Your thoughts on that?
No doubt, Steve. Look, this isn't a novel concept by me here, but as we're watching it play out over the first 2 rounds, and we need, I guess, more data. We need a couple more years to be sure about it, but the reality is the mid-majors of the world are just in bigger trouble than they've ever been before because most of their better players are now playing for the high majors.
That's right.
And when your only double-digit seed is Arkansas, not exactly a Cinderella, right? A lot has changed about the tournament, and there's no longer the great mid-major team with 5 seniors who have played 120 games together. Those teams, unfortunately, just don't exist. And I think it makes for a lesser tournament. It just wasn't that much fun. Certainly the first round wasn't much fun, right? There just wasn't a lot of competition. And the second round was certainly better. And, look, the Big Ten, it's nice to have 4 teams, but let's deal in reality here. Pretty fortunate, right? Caught the Southland, McNeese State in one of the games in the Mountain West in New Mexico and Colorado State in 2 of the other ones. So it helps to get those kind of matchups in the second round. And having said that, very fortunate, obviously, for Maryland. It was kind of a miracle. I thought they were outplayed and outcoached, and Derek Queen just made an insane shot at the end of the game, which they'll remember at College Park forever, and as they watch him make his millions next year in the NBA.
Right. Well, you're looking at 3 Florida Atlantic players still alive. You're looking at Toppin going from New Mexico over to Texas Tech still alive. I mean, it goes to your point that that's what we're seeing. They proved themselves someplace else, and the bigger guys won them.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know how many players from Belmont are still playing, but I know the point guard from Maryland is from Belmont, and I kept hearing their name as I was watching games. And he used to be at Belmont. I said, hell, they must have had a hell of a team last year at Belmont. But, it's just harder and harder. And it's also true of the coaches, right? Nico Medved sounds like he's ticketed for Minnesota, and Ben McCollum is now signed on with Iowa. So when your coach does well at that level, obviously, that's more understandable. That was always the case. And it's not that it's not understandable if the players don't want to take a shot. It's just how the game has changed. And again, for those, 250 to 300 schools, however you want to label mid-major, it's just going to be harder for them to compete in March.
No question. So I want to get to the Maryland part of it, because you and I have often complained about the lack of ability to understand math. And Maryland obviously understood math, or at least Derek Queen understood math on that final play.
Yep. Yeah, I was impressed, that they called timeout with 3.5 seconds left, and they didn't hoist a three at the buzzer. They said, hey, we're going to give the ball to our best player. We're going to have him drive it. Now, it was a very difficult drive. And you and I were both shocked to see Ethan Morton at Colorado State. Neither one of us knew he was there.
Right.
He had played at Purdue
right.
for all those years. I was sort of half paying attention. At one point, I think it was Robbie Hummel said, Ethan Morton. And I'm thinking, why is Robbie Hummel think he's doing a Purdue game? And then I looked up and said, it is. It's Ethan Morton. He said Colorado State. But he couldn't have played Queen any better.
No.
I mean, you got him driving left. He's a right-hander. He's off the wrong foot. And he banks it. And you know what? As soon as he shot it, you could see it was good. I mean, only a great player, like a guy who's going to be in the NBA, could have made that kind of a shot. Having said that, I thought Maryland was outplayed. I thought they were outcoached. I thought Colorado State deserved to win, but you don't always get what you deserve in life. And for the life of me, in the previous possession, Maryland did the two things you can't do. They had a foul to give, which they didn't give, and the only thing you can't do is the heavy favorite there is give up a three to give your chance to lose the game, and they did both.
Yeah, they did both. And I give Colorado State, they ran a great set and got the open three.
They did.
and went for it. I mean, we talk about math, but right, I loved it too, because we talk about math, but you talk about math in the context of who you are. Right, and Colorado State did what they had to do.
Yeah, I think the thought process, and it was a great one, was, look, if we said before the game we got a shot to have a ball in the air to win the game, to go to the 16, we're taking it. If we play 5 more minutes, the more minutes you play against a superior opponent, the less likely you are to win.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I thought it was an awesome, and as you said, they drew up a absolute, if that was the play, and I don't have any reason to doubt that it was, they drew up a perfect play where they basically had everything directed toward their best player on the left side of the court, when the actual idea was to throw it to a shooter over on the right side of the court.
Well, the other part too is that St. John's, which is a brilliantly coached team, as well coached as anybody in the country, but when there are certain elements you struggle at consistently, and for them it's outside shooting, it comes back to bite you at some point. St. John's got bitten over the weekend.
That was one of the stranger games I've seen, Steve, because, as you know, I think Rick Pitino is the best coach of our generation, and he had a bad day, and it wasn't because he wasn't playing R.J. Lewis, and he had a bad day for a number of reasons. Yeah. It's the hardest game to coach when you can see that all of your players, except Zuby Ejiofor, are completely out of it, and they were. Yes. They were committing fouls they shouldn't have been committing. They were making plays they hadn't made all year, and I think the issue with Lewis. Well, obviously 3 for 17 is a problem, but he kept taking them out, and without knowing, but I think I know what he was telling them, Lewis never passed the ball. He kept driving into the middle of the lane where 3 big guys were waiting for him, and he kept trying to force up shots. And I think Rick kept saying, hey, guys are open, pass the ball. And yes, about the three-point shooting, they're not good at it. But I think what happened there was, I mean, they had actually shot better lately. I think the moment got to everybody. You could tell that. And then the coaching mistake I thought Rick made, and again, I was astonished. I'm not going to be able to say the kid's name, the Greek kid who I barely had seen on the floor all year.
Right.
I mean, I got the fact that he wanted to get a shooter out there, but he was you could tell he was really nervous too, and he's a horrible defender. I mean, I actually thought Calipari did a terrible job of not just sending one player, just isoing him time after time, because anytime they did, they scored. So I didn't really understand why he played that many minutes. There were better choices on his bench than the kid from Greece. So I didn't get that. But again, I've seen that game. We've seen that game before, right, where the heavy favorite is just can't make a layup, can't do anything right. The star player's just out of sorts. And, man, I've watched coaches for years struggle to try to coach that game, and it happened to Rick on Saturday. It was just brutal. I felt bad because I think they were as good as anybody. They were playing as well as anybody, but I think the moment got to literally just about every guy on their team except Zuby Ejiofor, the center, and even he missed a huge layup late, which would have tied the game, I think, with like 4 or 5 minutes to go. It's just one of those bizarre games. And And maybe it was the wrong opponent too, Steve. I mean, Arkansas, look, they underachieved for most of the first half of the year because they were all new. They hadn't figured it out. And you watch them play, you go, geez, these guys, they got NBA players over there. They got some really good players on the team. So it wasn't like they lost to some 16 seed that can't play. But having said that, that was brutal to watch St. John just unravel on Saturday.
Well, in fact, let's remember about Arkansas. I mean, they got 3 transfers in from Kentucky that John brought with him. I mean, last I heard, B.J. Wagner's pretty good.
You know some of these players, and certainly the Wagner kid. I mean, you talk about Milt Wagner's grandson, DeJuan Wagner's son. I mean, you're talking about serious basketball genes right there, and legendary player from Camden High School. So, yeah, I mean, they have good players, and it showed. And ultimately they deserved to win. I mean, they were the better team on Saturday, but for the life of me, I was just baffled by how St. John's played. It was just just played so nervous, Steve. It was just like, wait a second, you've been playing all year long, and now you're nervous. But it does happen in that one and done. We've seen it before.
Through the opening weekend, who looks the part?
Duke looks like the team, right? I mean, I thought Baylor was going to give them a game, right? Because of they have really good players. I mean, Edgecombe might be top 3 player in the draft. Rob Wright, the point guard from Philly, from Newman Goretti, big-time recruit who played with Cooper Flagg at Montverde. I mean, how about that team? Cooper Flagg and Derek Queen and McNeely. I mean, are you serious? That's a high school team? I looked up some of their scores just for kicks. They won their opener last year 120-30. And I think they had 3 games decided by single digits, and I don't know what that was all about. But, I thought Baylor would give them a game, and they really didn't. Look, the ACC clearly was not as good, nearly as good as it has been, the fact that they only got 1 team out of the first round. But I would think they're the one team that you say, look, they have enough good players, and they're playing really well. I thought Florida was playing as well as anybody coming in, and UConn asked them a lot of questions yesterday. And frankly, they looked like St. John's most of the day.
Yes. Yep.
Then the shooter came to the rescue at the end, and Rick should have kept him at St. John's. He looked pretty good. He was with him at Iona. He would have looked pretty good there on Saturday playing for St. John's. And the one team I'm convinced that you're going to have to beat them is Houston. They are just tough. They're beautifully coached. In fact, if you said to me to give me a team, I'd probably take them. Although the committee just did a hideous job with them, putting them in Indianapolis, where they got to play they got to play Purdue for sure, and then possibly Kentucky in what will be 2 road games. I mean, I understood why they had Kentucky and Purdue there. Maybe they hadn't sold the place out. Well, they'll sell it out now. I would think with those 2 there. But really, if they'd have been thinking realistically, they'd have sent Houston as the 3. They'd have sent them out west, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, I look at Houston and Purdue, and here's the part. All right, Purdue. You and I both know Purdue's not a great defensive team. All right, okay. Houston's a great defensive team. Houston's got enough offense to beat that defense. That's how I look at it. I just think that's the problem for Purdue.
I don't think Purdue's going to be able to score. Look, we all know what their offense is. It's really good. But when you can shut off the point guard, and I think that's what they'll do, their offense falls apart. And I mean, I don't think Lawyer's going to get a shot off against this team.
No.
They just put too much pressure on the ball, and that's the kind of defense that in recent years has been Purdue's undoing. And I actually thought McNeese could have done that, but it looked to me like they spent 2 days celebrating their win in the first round. Which I've seen before in the tournament.
Yes. This is the greatest thing going. Oh, you got to play? We got to play again?
No. What? We won the championship. What's going on? And
he's negotiating with who?
Apparently, he wasn't even negotiating. He hadn't officially signed it. But I actually kind of like that.
Oh, so do I.
He didn't deny it. He just said, I'm going. I'm going to NC State. Good.
That's fine. At least he was open and direct about it. What the heck?
Yeah, what a concept. The truth. What?
We all know that the SEC brought in Mike Tranghese as a consultant, but we also know they poured a lot of money into what's going on. We know Texas Tech has the billionaire brothers. I mean, money is dictated. I mean, this is a follow-the-money sport right now, isn't it?
No question. And look, St. John's has my buddy Mike Rapoli, who's bankrolling the whole show there. For people who don't know who Mike is, he owned Vitamin Water. He invented it, sold it for billions, and he's a gigantic horse owner. He's a major player in horse racing. And he's a St. John's grad from Queens, longtime friend of Rick Pitino's. And I don't know if he's bankrolling all of it, but bankrolling a significant part of it. But yeah, that's what it's come down to. It's a money game, and the SEC obviously has money to play with. But even said that, Steve, I know they had 14 to get 7. Yeah, that's a record. Somebody said, well, if you have 14, you should get 7. Well, teams have had 11, and they got 1 to the 16. Right. So it's really impressive that they were able to get 7 of their teams. And look, it's all power, right? It's the 4 power conferences that have all the teams, except for the Big East, which didn't get anybody through this year. Right. But they've had enough national champions in recent years. They don't have anything to worry about.
No, they don't. Tennessee, Kentucky. The oddity is, I know Tennessee's a 4.5-point favorite.
Yep.
And Kentucky beat them twice this year.
Yeah, it's funny when in watching, and it's really a contrast in styles, right? Tennessee's trying to keep you from scoring, and Kentucky's trying to outscore you. That's why I love Kentucky yesterday against Illinois, because given how Illinois played this year, they were going to try to outshoot Kentucky. That's a mistake. You're not doing that. And why they insisted on trying to be the college version of the Celtics with bad 3-point shooting at Illinois, I'll never know. But that's on them. But yeah, that's a fun game. I love how Mark Pope coaches. I've known him isn't the right word, but I was around him when he was a player, and he was a great guy to talk to back then. So it's thrilling, I'm sure, for him and all the Kentucky people that are in the 16. But look, Tennessee's going to be a tough out. That is a very tough group. I do hear these things. It's hard to beat teams three times in a year. I think that's nonsense. If you beat the team twice, generally you're probably better than they are. Right. Right. It's tough to beat a team 3 times. Remember Penn State against Illinois 2 years ago in the Big Ten? I don't know if they can beat them 3 times. We said to each other, this is a great draw. They already beat this team twice.
Well, we're in Indianapolis, okay? And Dick and I pretty much think the same way anyway, okay? And we get to the post-game show, we said, look, there's a big reason why Penn State beat this team 3 times. They're better.
Right. They match up well with them. They can't guard Jalen Pickett. And the coach's way Penn State plays drives the other coach crazy. And I don't understand the whole 3 times thing. But whatever, it's fine. You'll hear that 100 times this week. And look, maybe Tennessee will get them, but Tennessee's favored because they've done better overall during the season than Kentucky has. But Kentucky got their point. They got their point guard back. He's the critical guy for their team. And they are a fun team to watch. And again, it's none of those guys were in Kentucky last year. I mean, Mark Pope had to start from scratch, and he started from scratch. He's in the Sweet 16, and that's the good and bad thing about it. But everybody has hope. It really doesn't matter how you do the previous season. That's almost become irrelevant. Yes. So to see what you do the next season.
Well, DJ, another weekend. And we can check the box. And then we'll go to the next one. How many Final Fours for you? 34?
No, I did 25 Final Fours. I was at 27 because I went to the 2 that were at College Park, the University of Maryland, as a fan way back in the day. But, yeah, I covered 25 for the Daily News. I think 34 is my Kentucky Derby number. I think that's the right one.
Yeah. That's it. 34 is the Kentucky Derby number.
And I got it was awesome. I mean, I saw some phenomenal runs. I was there for the Chris Jenkins shot in 2016. But it's fun now. Some people just, do you miss it? The only thing I miss about it is hanging out with friends and stuff like that. But it's nice when the game ends on Monday night and I hit the clicker and go, bing, and I'm out of there instead of running around trying to file a story in 20 minutes.
Now if we can just get the people working it to know the rules. All right, so.
Well, there's that.
There's some interesting texts back and forth between the two of us over the weekend. All right, we'll leave it at that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
We will talk soon. You're the best.
That's good. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
See you. Dick Jerardi, the best. We will come back. More in a moment. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.